So peace is a big subject when it comes to family dynamics. Probably what everybody would say they would want most in their family is peace.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, just a question to just get us started today. How was conflict handled in y'all's houses growing up, in your homes?
I do remember my mom and dad getting loud. There was never anything that I would consider abusive or, you know, cussing each other out or anything like that. But I do remember them being loud. And as I was young, I tried to get away where I would not hear whatever they're fighting. Mostly it was about money. And I remember telling myself, I don't ever want to do that if we have in front of my children, because of the way it made me feel.
Yeah. How did it make you feel?
Afraid, that, we weren't going to have enough.
Yeah. So you're
And
more
also
worried
afraid
about
that-
the content of
Right.
what they were. Yeah.
And then, are my parents going to divorce? I mean, where's this going?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
put fear in me as a young
Sure.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you all?
Well, between my parents, any argument they had was not. It's just usually disagreement with them. It wasn't like he said abusive or anything like that. With the young ones, we lived in a time where spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
So you handle conflict by you're given a directive, and if you do it, then awesome. And if you don't, we were punished, but we weren't punished for mistakes. We were
Right.
punished for disobedience and rebellion.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how our world was. And so I'm just so anti-pain that you only have to correct me one time. So I didn't get a lot of corrections.
Yeah.
I didn't get a lot of corrections like, okay, I learned. So if something happened, it was really a mistake. It was a genuine mistake. But that's really how conflict in our household growing up was handled.
Yeah, my house, we are Latin, and so it was loud, not necessarily in. There was not a lot that was let to slide off.
Yeah.
I think my parents were very not conflict averse at all.
Okay.
And so it was let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's dig into it. And so it was a lot of like, okay.
Yeah.
A lot of conversations, a lot of conflict resolution. But it's interesting because my wife's family is very different. And so a lot of, especially us trying to figure out how we handle conflict in our home is like, I always wanted to, let's talk about it. Let's put on the gloves in a healthy way and let's come to a solution.
Yeah.
And especially early on, it was trying to figure out what that balance looks like for our home.
Yeah.
Because we can be too aggressive or we can sweep things under the rug one way or the other. And both ends of the spectrum really end up hurting a family and not really helping get to
It's really hard to strike that balance too. Because that's what I would say is we were probably conflict adverse because my dad and I don't like conflict. And my mom is so forgiving that, she would just look over a fence if she got her feelings hurt. And my brother and I are 10 years apart. So we only lived under the same roof for 7 years. Wow. I left for college when I was 17. So, my brother and I didn't have conflict because he was like my first child in that way, because I was his babysitter. But when I think of conflict, because I didn't have conflict with my parents, maybe with my mom some as a teenager when I was moody, we would definitely have conflict. But I would think of more as just me being wrong and her being right. But as we grew and as adults, we would put off conflict resolution until it got to a place where it had to be dealt with. And then we had a family meeting. And those family meetings were notoriously traumatic.
Yeah.
Because hurtful things would be said in the spirit of getting everything out on the table and being honest. And so I ended up being really allergic to family meetings and like whatever I can do to avoid a family meeting, I prefer. So my husband, that's my family of origin. My husband comes from both my parents are very passionate, so I would hear them disagree passionately, not screaming at each other, anything like that. But so when I got married, my husband came from a family where they don't disagree in front of anyone. So he never heard his parents argue. Wow. To me, that's kind of like people who sneeze but don't make a noise. I'm like, your head's going to fly off or something. I don't know where's all the energy going, you know?
Right.
But good for them that they could work it all out without a squeak, you know?
Yeah.
But so when we got married, I wanted to talk about everything because I didn't want it to lead to a family meeting, and I didn't want to sweep it under the rug. But my husband, me thinking I'm not going as far as my parents, was still going too far for him when he's coming from a family of origin who is quiet about conflict. Right. Yeah. So I had to realize really quickly, I think I'm just being honest, but this is coming across as an attack. Yeah. It's coming across as hurtful. Yeah. And I'm used to being able to just say blunt things because that's, even though it wasn't, I don't think, totally healthy all the time. Some of that is, you know, but scarring someone is not. Yeah. Right. So my husband would always put boundaries around, okay, if we're going to talk about this, then you have to watch your tone. Mm-hmm. You need to look in the mirror and watch what your face looks like, because he would always say to me, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. Right. Bob talked about this earlier in one of our after the sermons about Charlotte telling you that you come across as intense. Right. My husband would say that to me too. And I would say, I'm not mad at you. I'm just really passionate about this. And it wasn't at all about him. It was about a situation that was outside of our relationship. But the way that I would talk about it was so intense that he's like, I feel like you're mad at me. Yeah. And so I would have to go, okay, can I discuss this calmly? Yeah. But I think striking that balance of, can we, bring peace, because you can't really have peace when you don't address things that are growing under the surface.
Fake peace. Yeah.
It is. It's fake. It's like mold in the walls. Yeah. Well, you're eventually going to get toxic. Right.
That family of origin, where you come from, is so important. And that's one of the big conflicts early in marriage is learning that, because I did come from a loud, arguing type thing. And I'm loud generally. And Charlotte was meek, 3 sisters and a meek little mom. Yeah. And I remember us talking, and I was passionate about it. And she would go hide in the bathroom because she, and she'd go, well, you're yelling. I go, this isn't yelling, this is yelling, that kind of stuff. No. And I would literally write a note, please, I will calm down and talk softly if you'll just come out, Wow. But the thing that you said that was interesting, Josh, is healthy conflict. Mm-hmm. Conflict can be very healthy. Yes. If handled correctly. Yeah. Because both parties to the conflict can grow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're willing to listen, and be humble in your to receive and go, okay, that's what you perceive, and say, I'll own that. And you can, structure conflict to where it's very beneficial, because there's no way on God's green earth that we're ever going to avoid conflict. Yeah. We're human. Mm-hmm. And conflict is going to happen. But where friction is where advancement comes. Yeah. So I would say, don't necessarily run from conflict. Yeah. Learn how to have constructive conflict, whether it's your marriage or even with your kids, or even in the workplace, whatever it is. You can learn to have constructive conflict where both parties grow and you come to a right resolve. Yeah.
And that's constructive is the key. I think for Stephanie and I, the first 3 years of our marriage, we just butt heads a lot because we saw things differently. No one was wrong. It's just we did things differently. We grew up differently. And I remember, we wanted to make sure that we can talk to each other and have healthy conflict, but it's not healthy when one person, being myself, didn't really care if I was right. I just had to win the battle. Mm-hmm. And no one wins. No one wins if, even if I was wrong, I had to win the battle. And I think if you approach the conflict like I really want to help, I really want there to be understanding. I really want us to come to a point to where it's a win-win as opposed as opposed to winning the battle. because I don't want someone to say, okay, your conflict is healthy, because it is healthy. And then the husband or wife will say, well, this is what we're supposed to do. And then next thing you know, we go all out. Well, no, there's supposed to be good things that come out of conflict.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't delay it, right? Because I heard it said delayed conflict is multiplied conflict. You know, things grow, you know, so you have to, it takes a great humility to say, I'm sorry, and, you know, and start it off, and to know the language of the other person. Like Stephanie, I know Stephanie needs time. I'm a fixer. I wanna fix it right now. So let's talk about it right now. But everything that's coming out of my mouth, she's not hearing that at all.
Yeah.
So we've made no leadway at all. My thing is, we know what the issue is. She just needs some time, and I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be some understandings there, so that we can get to resolution. I heard a quote: "Conflict's last name is resolution," and that's really where everybody's trying to get to.
Yeah.
I remember early on in our marriage, we had a conflict with my parents about holidays, or I don't remember. They live in another state, and so we're trying to figure out what that looks like. And involving kids that are, you know, across the country. And I remember we had a conflict, and my dad called right after. We were all having some misunderstanding, and he said, "Hey, I think everybody's got to be on the same page. We all love each other. Like we are all a family. Nobody is trying with any weird motives, or, you know, trying to win. Everybody is on the same page. We all love each other.
You want to be together, for God's
yes.
sake. We're just trying to work it out.
Yeah.
So let's all come with an underlying understanding from here on forward. We're all trying to do the best that we can. Nobody's got any hidden motives or agendas. Like and really that's what we've taken for the rest of the conversations after that. Everybody loves each other. And so really what we are endeavoring in conflict resolution is to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
So that we are all on the other side of this, able to enjoy time together, or relationships. Because ultimately this is our family. These are the people that God has put as holy and as omnipotent into our spheres, for us to grow and be all that we can.
And if you start off that way, start off the conflict that way, that's amazing.
Well, understand too the concept of perception. You know, we may have to correct their perception, but if it's their perception and they received it one way, then own that and address the perception, not be defensive. You know, and trying to understand where they are coming from, because again, you may not have meant it that way, and it may not even be in your heart, but if it's perceived that way, then I want to address the perception and own that and say, okay, how do we correct that? And then move on to whatever we're trying to solve, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're going to see it through that until you have really an open and honest conversation about it and resolve that.
Yeah. Which is where forgiveness in family starts to become a paramount subject of being able to not only bring some of these conflicts up above the rug and not sweep them under, but then really have to move forward in some instances where there's nothing like the people that are closest to you, just because of their relation and because of their proximity. Is sometimes those people can hurt you the deepest because they have access and they're not on the peripheral, or, you know, we run into each other every now and then. But I think, and that's going to be a topic for a lot of families, is how do we work through forgiveness with people that are the closest to me?
Yeah.
And so I would just, does anybody have a story or a time where you've had to really figure out, what does forgiveness look like? How does that get modeled, not just in extra relationships, but really for our inner circle?
Yeah. I've had practice forgiving, and one time I remember really distinctly, and it grew from there to now. I feel it visibly. I feel a peace that almost wraps me up when I choose forgiveness. I was really upset at a family member, and they went too far with something, and I had a right to be really upset. And my way, even from a teenager, is with friendships. If there was conflict, I just left the friendship. I didn't know that you could work through it and it be better.
Yeah.
And so I would just isolate myself. And so I was going that direction, just leaving, walking away, and going, okay, and really in my mind settling that I'm not going to have a close relationship with this person. You know, it's painful. And I remember driving away from that situation and praying and asking the Lord, help me, whatever you tell me to do, you direct my steps, whatever you tell me to do. I know in my heart I'm mad and I want to leave. But if you tell me to go back and continue this conversation with them, I'll do it. And instantly I knew what I had to do. I turned around. I had to swallow my pride.
Wow.
And I went back and said, I'm here to finish the conversation. Sorry, I left. And I remember in that forgiving and really releasing and saying, I'm not going to pout against him. I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm not going to bring it up again. It was, I really grew up in that moment and recognized, you know, I don't feel like I've done anything to deserve anything the way that I've been treated, but I'm going to forgive.
Yeah.
And I know God is a debtor to no one.
Yes.
Only reason I'm here is because he's forgiven me and he set me up. And I want to be an emissary of peace.
Yeah.
And if he can use me, he can trust me.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was almost like I paid a debt to that person.
Wow.
And God filled my bank account with peace.
Yeah.
It was supernatural. I learned so much from that.
Wow.
And when I remember turning that car around and going back and saying, I'm turning around. I'm going to swallow my pride. The Lord told me to. And ever since I felt like I was really empowered to forgive.
Wow.
I don't shy away from it the way that I did before.
Yeah.
The way that I did, because my cousin is here when we're filming right now, and she would vouch for this. But when we were a kid, I was the same as Paul. I had to win. I had to have the last word. And I remember she wouldn't argue with me. And finally, one time I said, "Why aren't you arguing with me?" She said, "Because you'll win the argument, but you're still wrong." And so I recognized that, okay, if she doesn't argue with me, it's because she knows she's right, and I'm not going to argue.
Yeah.
But when you just are that person that's like, I want to win, forgiving and just dropping the rope.
Wow.
is a big sacrifice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But God makes it up to you in ways that are incalculable.
Yes.
And I just felt that by the Spirit, that it was a spiritual practice to forgive.
Right.
And it's not because they said the right words. They never did.
Yeah.
Right.
They couldn't fix what they broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But God said, I will. If you will forgive them, I will make up for this, Amie,
Yes.
with you. And I think really that's our only hope,
Yeah.
because everybody isn't always going to be there to say the right thing or to fix what they've broken. You can't unscramble an egg.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are some situations that have to be fixed in the spirit, because in the natural, they may never.
And if you're waiting on a particular person to come with the right words, they're still holding power.
Yeah, exactly. That's such
And you
a good
can wait
point.
for the rest of your life.
Right.
I love the
Stuck.
you stuck and not ready to move forward. I love the story of Joseph, and at the end of all of his time, the Bible says that he has a baby.
Yeah.
His firstborn son, he names Manasseh, and it means the Lord has made me forget all my hardship, all my trouble, and He has blessed me in the land of my affliction.
I love it.
And I love this idea that you either get to hold on, hoping one day somebody comes to you groveling on their knees or whatever and says, "Would you please forgive?" And they may never, or you get to let the Lord repay it.
Right.
Boaz tells Ruth, "The Lord repay you for all you've done
Yeah.
for your mother-in-law."
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to.
No.
And He wasn't going to hold it against you, but you made a decision in faith
To go the next mile.
to where you didn't have to.
Yeah. Beyond the obligatory.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Lord repays that. Like you said, He's the debtor to no man.
Right.
And He makes up for it in incredible ways.
Yeah, I mean, we have to realize that unforgiveness makes us sick.
Yeah.
You know, I had a situation in my life where I was hanging on to something that somebody a family member had spoken some real negative things about me to my wife and also about my children. And, you know, so I'm not speaking to that person, and I'm just going to write that person off. And I'll never forget where God dealt with me on it. I was fishing, and I was out fly fishing in a beautiful river. You could actually drink the water
Wow.
out of the river. I got a picture of it because it was like an altar to me, right? And it was fresh and clean, smelled good. As we were leaving, I smelled this stench. And I asked the God, I said, man, what is that? We're in this beautiful area. It was in Utah. We're in this beautiful area and this beautiful water. I'm drinking the water. And I walked over and he goes, oh yeah, that's just a stagnant pond. I go, why is that not fresh? And he goes, because it's not releasing anywhere. Mm-hmm. And he said, and when it doesn't get released, the minerals stay in there and it causes a stink and an algae. And I knelt down by it. I have a picture by it. And my friend took it because God spoke to me. He said, what's different in your life? Because you haven't released forgiveness for this individual. And it's a stagnation in your life. Yeah. And that was the moment that I, in my spirit, truly said, okay, I'm releasing that person. Yeah. And there had been some distance between the time that these things happened. Yeah. And I'd been quite a while, you know. And so it was in me. Yeah. It was, you know, when we don't forgive, we're bringing stagnation and sickness and stink on ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. You know,
but when we do forgive,
Yes.
I would say if anything could be boiled down to the reason why I'm in ministry in the position I'm in is forgiveness.
Yeah.
The number one, the things people don't see. They'll think, oh, it's speaking or whatever. Yeah. It's not. That's not. Because if unforgiveness can make you that stagnant, releasing and forgiving and being a conduit of healing opens the gates of heaven. Right. And I feel it. That's why it's like now you don't want to ask for people to betray you and hurt you, but I look for, okay, this is a new deposit. This is a new opportunity. If I forgive and release, I know what God will release to me because I felt it. I've had it. I've experienced it. And I think really when we get to heaven one day and we see, or, you know, in stand before the Lord face to face, we're going to really be judged more by what we forgave than what we gave. Yeah. Because anything that we gave was already given to us by God. Right. But we have the chance when we're alive to withhold. Yes. Right? Yeah. And it's like when we forgive, we are allowing everything Jesus paid for to be deposited right now in this moment. Yeah. It's powerful.
Yeah, and I love that because I think a lot of people would think forgiveness is a feeling. I'm going to wait until the bitterness is not there anymore. No. I'm going to wait. But when we look at Jesus on the cross, he says, Father, forgive them. The word forgive literally means to let go. It means I release. And so I love that it's dropping the rope.
While they're actively killing
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's not waiting to wake up one day and be overwhelmed with this emotion or what. It's making the choice to say, I'm just going to drop the rope right now. Yeah. They don't have to say the right thing. They don't have to do the right thing. Somebody else doesn't have to come on their behalf. I don't have to wait one day to feel it. I can make a decision to drop the rope.
Right. And that's a great picture of covenant. I'm not going to hold anything against you. Yeah. Like automatically making the decision. You're my wife. You're my husband. I'm not going to hold anything against you. I forgive now before it even happened. Yeah. I'm not going to, what kind of peace do you have?
Well, people may say, well, you're not me. You haven't been married to someone who cheated on you 20 times and the 21st time was it and I was done. No, I haven't. Right. And I can't say what decision I would be led to make if I were in your shoes. But I would say, Peter asked Jesus, how many times do you forgive someone for the same sin? And he said, 70 times 7. That's in one day for the exact same thing. Yeah. So we know how God feels about it. Yeah. But just on that note, when I forgive, I am basically saying, I don't hold this against you. I'm not your judge. Yeah. But there is a judge. Right. Yes. Yeah. I'm not saying you're scot-free. I'm just saying I'm not your judge. Yes. I'm forgiving you and releasing you, but God will. Right. Yes. And if you continue when you've been forgiven, that's between you and God. Yes. You will reap what you sow. Right. But not from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes we'll say we're not supposed to judge. And of course, we're supposed to discern and judge the difference between right and wrong. But when it comes to eternal judgment, that's not on us.
Right.
Yes.
It's to go, I forgive and release, and God will deal with you.
Yeah.
You know, I bow my head, and if a sword swings and yours is still raised up in pride, then yours is going to roll, not mine.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not on me.
Yeah.
You know, because to me, that's one way of just saying vengeance belongs to the Lord.
Yeah.
So is because I can't imagine. I haven't had to live through some of the heinous things of someone abusing my child, or I'm not sure I wouldn't be in prison
Yeah.
if somebody had to. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Absolutely.
So I cannot speak to levels of forgiveness or someone killing your child. But you just have to say, if you're in it, you know, to call out on the Lord, He will give you the power to forgive so that you can be released,
Yes.
Right.
so that you can live in freedom.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not really about the person who's perpetrated something against you.
And there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation.
There is.
Forgiveness is letting it go.
Yeah.
And then there is, but you know,
You don't have to be
patterns of-
friends with everybody.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And boundaries are helpful. You know, again, you don't have to be best friends with people, and especially people that are patterns of abuse. You know, that nobody's asking to continue to put yourselves in situations where you're in harm's way or your kids are in harm's way or anything like that. So there's a difference there between, you know, we are best friends going to lunch or that I made the decision. I'm not going to hold it against you anymore.
Yeah, forgiveness is just simply another word for freedom.
Yes.
Right.
For you to be free, so you're not worried all the time, am I going to run into this person and a mountain of lava come out of my mouth for all the resentment? It's like, no, I'm free. I'm not motivated by vengeance.